Good afternoon and welcome to the Entertainment Plaza Games, where once a week, every week, we try to deliver you gaming news. Today we're switching it up a little bit. My name's Bryan. I will be your host for today, and I'm accompanied by my literal brother from another mother, Moses. How you doing today, man?
You ain't lying. I am actually doing great, man. Today, it is different. I am the co host, and let me tell you something. It feels great. Grate. I don't have to.
All
Um,
right.
Nah, it feels good, man. You're taking the reins on this one, and we're gonna do our thing. But yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm doing good, and we got some stories here today for everybody, so I can't wait.
That's good. All right. So before we start anything off, I do believe we have about four stories on the Plaza Report today. But as always, if you can't catch today's stream, we will be on YouTube after we finish here, either an hour and a half to 2 hours after we finish,
It's about
or
right.
sometime in the morning. If you can't catch us at all, we are on your streaming services. That is, Pandora, Spotify, any type of podcast service, definitely hop on there. You can catch us anytime you want. And now, without further ado, we will start on our first story. This is coming directly from NintendoLife.com. This is going to be about the Switch's successor. This was written today at 8:30 a.m. by Alana Hayes. Nintendo does say it wants to avoid a repeat of Wii U with Switch's successor. Nintendo's president calls it a major concern. As we all know, the Wii U was a major
Yeah, you
flop.
ain't lying.
It didn't hold up to what we all believed it would. So, since Nintendo announced its financial results yesterday, where it revealed that the Switch has now sold more than 107 million units worldwide and predicted that profits would again drop in the next financial year, there's been a lot of chatter about a Switch successor. In a Japanese investor Q&A translated by Robert Cephison for VGC, Nintendo President Shuntaro Furukawa has spoken about the results and the future of the company, and the Switch's successor indeed came up during the talk. Despite saying that the Switch was only in the middle of its life cycle back in February, Furukawa indeed acknowledged that it wouldn't be around forever, but that the transition to a new next gen console is a major concern for Nintendo. Furukawa says the Switch's smooth launch has allowed them to plan and develop for the console even after over 5 years, but that they are focusing on building long term relationships with customers in order to alleviate as much risk as possible for the hybrid's future successor. Furukawa then goes on to say, unlike the past, we continue to have a large variety of games scheduled to be released, even beyond 5 years of release. This is because the Nintendo Switch has had such a smooth launch, allowing us to focus all of our development resources on a single platform. And I agree with that 100%. However, the question of whether we will be able to just as smoothly transition from the Switch to the next gen of hardware is a major concern for them. Based on their experiences with the Wii, the DS, and other hardware, it is very clear that one of the major obstacles is how to easily transition from one hardware to the next. To help alleviate that risk, they're focusing on building long term relationships with their customers. They'll continue launching new software on the Switch. They'll also provide services that use Nintendo accounts and other IP outside of gaming software. They intend for this to help build a long lasting impact with their customers. So basically, what's happening is we are hearing about a new successor that's coming after the Switch. I'm definitely hyped to figure out find out what's going to be after this. I do not want it to be like they don't want it to be either another Wii U where
No.
it was bad. It didn't sell. Nobody really liked it. People now just have it as like a collector's type item, stuff like that. So maybe play once in a while. What are your thoughts on that, Mo?
Well, definitely don't want to repeat the whole Wii U situation. I remember I lived in Chicago at the time. I was a day one Wii U buyer. I had the 32 gigabyte Black Edition, and I was hyped, man. Like I remember getting. I still have the game. Zombie U was one of my first games. Mario Party, or New Super Mario Brothers U. I mean, those were good games. One of my favorite games of all time, which is now ported over to the Switch, Mario Kart 8. You know what I mean? Like, I
Yep.
literally played this game until my controller broke. Another game that was super good, probably one of their best games as well, was Super Smash Brothers Wii U. Now, this is one,
Yep.
you already know that you were playing this on your freaking 3DS. So,
Yeah.
there's games. The Wii U had great games. The problem was when they launched it, they didn't have a good launch. What do you say? They didn't have too many games at launch. So, excuse
Right.
me, that really hurt the sales because if you don't have games to play at launch, why buy the system? If I'm not mistaken, I believe the Wii U sold about 17 million consoles lifetime. That's literally probably the second biggest flop in Nintendo's, in the company of Nintendo's history.
Right.
Number
Yep.
one being the Virtual Boy, which I actually have back there on my gaming shelf. That one, I don't even think that thing sold 100 or 1 million consoles. Another, the Virtual Boy unfortunately had its own problems where you could only play it for like 6 to 8 minutes at a time, and the console itself would literally say, "Please turn me off and rest your eyes." And people were having seizures because of having this Virtual Boy on their face and everything inside with the strobing lights and the red and black flashing. It was giving people problems, but. As far as a successor to the Nintendo Switch, one, I don't think we're anywhere near that. There's an article back in February where Nintendo, at that time, they sold 103.54 million Nintendo Switches. I think it was about 2 days ago where I was listening to a podcast, and I think they're now at like 117 million
Holy
sold
smoke.
Nintendo Switches. And they're thinking, and I think this is the same company report that you're reading off of. The president of Nintendo said we think we can outsell the PlayStation 2, which is I think 156 million consoles. So
Right.
they're
Right.
still pretty far. I think they're like 51 million away or something along those lines. What does that mean? That means that one, we can't just stay with the Nintendo Switch Lite, the original, and the OLED. There to
Right.
sell another 51 million consoles, we're going to need Nintendo Switch Pro or a 4K Nintendo Switch. Another variation is still under the Switch's name. So
Right.
that same article said that we're only in the middle of the lifespan of the Switch, which means it came out in 2017. It's 2022. We probably have another 4 to 5 years before we see the Switch's successor. So um, I am definitely glad that they're thinking about, what can we do to prevent the woes of the Wii U. But I also know that we're nowhere near having a Switch 2. You know what I mean? Or
Definitely.
whatever the new Switch is going to be. I hope we come out with a Switch Pro. I'll definitely grab one. I want a Switch OLED. I just haven't gotten around to buying one. Been so busy with all this stuff, it just doesn't make sense for me right now. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the Switch is selling like hotcakes. It's not stopping. It is, in my opinion, probably Nintendo's best console ever, and that's saying a lot. I mean, we
Oh
had the
yeah.
original NES, which took the gaming world by storm when the gaming scene was in a recession. We had the Super Nintendo with a game like Super Mario World, which revolutionized the 16-bit era. We had the N64, which it didn't sell a lot, only had about 296 games, but games like Super Mario 64 and GoldenEye 007 again revolutionized the industry. Yes, PS1 was out and Sega had, I think at the time, was a Sega Saturn, but it just didn't hit like the 64. Then we had the GameCube, the Wii, one of the best selling consoles ever. Personally, that
Yep.
was one of the only consoles I never got when it first came out. It just wasn't for me, but I have it now. It's modded. I have it in one of my arcade cabinets. It's amazing. And then with the Wii, we had the Wii U. Unfortunately, it bombed, and now we have the Switch. So, out of all those consoles, I would probably say the Switch is the best console Nintendo has ever put out, and I'm not sure too many people can deny that with what you can do with
Oh
it.
yeah. Not at
So,
all. I
but
mean, since with the 3DS incline or decline, I should say, in 2020, when they stopped their production, and the eShop closing in 2023, their focus on just a single thing has definitely worked to their advantage.
yeah,
The Switch itself hasn't seen any major sales drops since 2017. So that's, I mean, that's impressive.
And I'm sure the pandemic helped.
Oh
I
yeah, there.
remember one conversation I was having with a friend, and sorry to cut you off, but
You're
we
good.
were saying, would the Switch have sold like it did if there wasn't a pandemic, or would one of the games that came out during the pandemic, right at the beginning, was Animal Crossing? I know this because I bought it for my wife, and she has like 70 hours in that game.
Yep.
Would that game have sold over 30 million copies if it wasn't for the pandemic? My answer was no. But just because it didn't sell 30 million doesn't mean it wouldn't have sold 25 million or 20 million
Right.
copies, which is still ridiculous for any game to sell. So, yeah, I mean, that the Switch, regardless of the pandemic or not, was, it was going to sell.
Yeah. It's currently sitting at the fifth best selling console in the world. So there.
What are the top four?
Don't ask me. I didn't look at them. Probably PlayStation or Xbox is
Well,
somewhere
there's
up there. It got
definitely, let me look it up here. Best selling consoles of all time. I know the PS2 is number one for sure. Okay, here we go. So the PS2 is number one. The DS line, so that's Nintendo DS, DS Lite, 2DS, 3DS. That's all the same thing, and that's what I feel like Nintendo's going to do with the Switch. Just keep
Yeah.
different iterations of the same console. Number three is the Game Boy and Game Boy Color. Again, different iterations of the same console, and then number four is the PlayStation 4. So, I mean, it'll definitely pass. The
Yeah. I
PlayStation
mean, you
4,
you got
pretty
to know
much.
that Nintendo's up there.
Yeah,
They're holding three of the five spots of best selling consoles in the world.
right.
So
Yeah.
they're doing something good.
Yeah, I mean the top 10. It's Xbox One is number 10 at 41 million units. You have Super Nintendo at 49.1 million units, number 9. The Nintendo regular NES 61, almost 62 million. You have the Nintendo Switch. This is old. It's at 85 million on this article, which was put out almost a year ago. So that's 85 million.
Holy
We're talking
smoke.
about almost 20 million more at this point. Um, no, actually 30 million more since last year. So let's see. If they're at 117 million, number six is 85.5. So it outsold the 360. The PlayStation 3 is 86.9. It's outsold the PS3. The Nintendo Wii outsold the Wii, which is 102 million. So now it's number four. Oh no, it passed the original PlayStation at number three. Number two is the PS4 at 115, and number one, oh wow, so it's like number two now. So it's the second
Holy
best
smoke.
selling unit ever. And
That's crazy.
yeah, and the PS2 right now is at 157.68 million units. I have five of them right behind me, just in case you were wondering. Out of those 157 million.
I mean, I wasn't, but I guess
Yeah.
that's a big chunk out of
Right.
the millions that are out there. But
Yeah, man.
all
Man,
right,
excuse me.
so let's see. I think that's about it for that story.
Yeah, definitely.
We're gonna move over to another Nintendo related. This morning, Nintendo did drop out a indie direct. Really interesting. It was about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, I should say. They went in. Their lineup is 20 games that are going to be released either this year, next year, or somewhere in like that in between state. Maybe this year, next year, maybe not.
Okay.
Um, so believe five of them drop today. This article is also from NintendoLife.com. Um, and it says New Indie World Showcase reveals electrifying lineup of indie games headed to the Nintendo Switch soon. With such an extensive variety of indie games arriving to the Switch, there's something for everyone to look forward to. In a new Indie World Showcase presentation, Nintendo and its publishing and development partners from around the world revealed new details about 20 indie games coming to the Nintendo Switch family of systems, including 4 titles arriving today. So I was
Mm.
right, I was off by one. Um, this does include Mini Motorways, Soundfall, Opus, Echo of Star Song Full Bloom Edition, and Gibbon, Beyond the Trees. Highlights of the presentation include a first look at the noir punk action adventure Gunbrella from Doinksoft. It features a weapon legitimately as intriguing as the name, as well as the debut of Another Crab's Treasure from Aggro Crab. Funnily enough, it is a Souls-like adventure game
Mm,
set in a
of course it
crumbling
is.
underwater world plagued by a mysterious curse. There's a lot more in that showcase that they did show. Other games featured include Elect Head, which is a electrifyingly ambitious platformer. It's a play on words there, with head scratching puzzles, nice, and Ooblets, a game about farming and collecting adorable creatures.
Yeah, I see that one. I'm actually looking at some of the games now that they talked about, and one that looks a lot like Hades. I don't know if you played Hades or not. Um, it's a real good game. It's actually a like a returnal game, a loop. What are those called?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
A
It's like a never-ending
Yeah,
type.
and it's called Batora Lost Haven. It looks it looks pretty good. It's a top-down isometric view. Um, that one looks good. Elect Head looks a lot like a almost like Mega Man, and that one
Yeah.
actually looks pretty good too. Soundfall looks beautiful. That I feel like that's gonna look great on an OLED.
I saw it, so I watched the direct shortly before we did this, and Downfall is actually a music-based fighting game,
Mm.
and it
Like Doctor
legitimately, if
Strange.
you, yeah, yes, like Doctor
Right.
Strange, if you, when you're playing the games and you're fighting the enemies, music is playing. There's, I think they said like 4 or 5 different heroes that you could choose from. Each have their own different type abilities. But as the music's playing, if you attack on beat with the music,
Mm.
you actually get like amplified in power. You get stronger. Your
Okay.
attacks do more damage. So if you're able to time the stuff, of course the characters they kind of make their own music and
Right.
stuff like that while you're fighting. But you can do it single player, you can do it co-op. I mean, it looks beautiful. I That is one game that I can't wait till it drops, and I believe it drops in 2023. Either that or June, one of the two. I can't remember.
There's another one here. It's called Totally Accurate Battle Simulator. That looks
Tabs.
interesting. It says Totally Accurate Battle Simulator, or TABS, as the devs call it for short, is a very ragdollish fighter developed by Landfall Games, and it looks like it's filled with plenty of laugh-inducing combat. You can play as a samurai, knights, fencers, and more in battles that feature more than 100 wobblers or fighters on each team. So that one looks good. That actually looks
Yeah,
interesting.
Tabs has actually been around for a while. Tabs isn't like a
Oh,
new
okay.
game. It was on PC. I do remember
Gotcha.
watching like other streamers and stuff play them and watching it like Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, those kind of guys, and they played it for a while, and then I mean, like most indie games, they kind of die off and they
Yeah.
don't really get talked about much. So I'm actually glad to see that it's making its emergence back into the gaming world. And it's on Switch. It's definitely, I believe they made it co-op as well. You
Oh,
can
wow.
battle your friends. Um, so that's, I'm happy to see a game kind of revive itself, coming
Yeah,
back into the
definitely.
limelight.
I would say one thing about the Switch, and first of all, let me apologize for all my coughing and sneezing. Allergy season is here, my friends, and it
Hmm.
has gotten me. I mean, you see my eyes; they all puffy. I mean, I'm still sexy though, but it's just sexy puffy
Damn right.
eyes. That's what they call me at work, sexy puffy eyes, or SPE for short, or SPE for those that know how to spell. But
Yeah,
one thing about the Switch, and this goes hand in hand with the lifespan of the Switch. They are so open to indie developers, and the fact that they have a direct specifically for indie games and for these indie smaller, studios to
yeah,
showcase their games goes a long way in the lifespan of the Nintendo Switch. Where yeah, Xbox has kind of something similar, and PlayStation not so much. They're kind of like the worst when it comes to indie games.
yeah,
But the Switch is just deliberately bringing in these indie developers, and some of these games are freaking amazing. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people are like, oh, well, the graphics this, and, frame rate that, and 30 frames per second, whatever it may be. But some of these games, it's like, one takes me back to my childhood for Nintendo, Super Nintendo, the way the styles are. but they're
Yep.
just so good, man. They're so good. So that's something that the Switch again has going for it,
Oh
and
yeah.
they're great in
The
handheld mode.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, being able to take those games with you, I mean, stuff like that, you can make good memories off of just small little indie games.
Right.
Games that are like that are made like that, have a lot more sentimental value than big games, at
I
least in
agree.
my opinion, because they are, it's a small studio. They put blood, sweat, and tears into this.
Yep.
Maybe two people working on it, and you can tell like they made it somewhere. They made it onto this platform, and some of them deliver.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
speaking of the entire lineup here, which consists of 20 games, um, starts off with Ooblets, which is a game about farming, collecting adorable creatures, something like that. You can kind of, I wouldn't say like speak with other people in the game,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not too sure if it is co-op, but the trailer did show other people with Ooblets with them.
Hmm.
Um, you can explore different regions of the world and stuff like that. Batora Lost Haven, Elect Head, which is a platformer, looks really good. It's different. The premise of the game is you're a battery, basically. You're a little battery man. And to be able to maneuver this 2D world, platformer world, you actually have to connect yourself to platforms to energize them.
Hmm.
And that's how you move on. You can disconnect your head, but you can't be more than 10 seconds disconnected or else you die.
That's interesting.
Um, yeah, it looked really good. There's Soundfall, which I was really into. Wild Frost, which is kind of like a card game, if I do remember correctly. Totally Awesome Battle Simulator, or Tabs, which was actually Swedish made. Um, Gunbrella, that one looks incredibly dope.
Yeah, I saw
Um,
that. I'm actually playing the trailer as we speak. Right now, I think it's totally accurate battle simulators playing.
mhm.
But the Gumbrella, yeah, that actually looks pretty cool too.
Yeah, it is. It is great. Number 8 on the lineup is We Are OFK. Now, the trailer did say OFK is a band,
Okay.
like an actual, I believe, real life
Oh wow.
band.
Okay.
This game is a storytelling game, where I believe you can like choose your path or whatever. The 4 people on the game, I believe, are representative of the actual people in the band. They've done all the voice acting themselves. Um, the animation looks beautiful. Um, it's not my type of game, but I might give it a try just because it looks like it was just in, well made,
Right.
just
Right.
well made in general.
Right. Yeah, and
Um,
some of these indie games, I mean, I can't see them being too expensive. So what's
yeah,
five
oh yeah,
dollars or $10? You'll spend that at McDonald's any day. So for a game
right.
that you may or may not like, at least you tried it out. And there are games where I always encourage people. You may not like the first hour, 2 hours, maybe even 3 hours, but for some reason that fourth hour hits and it makes the rest worth it.
Yep. Number 9 on the list is a game called Silt. This is also made by Swedish developers. Um, this entire game was hand drawn.
Oh wow.
They the pandemic kind of um messed them up a bit. So they were working from their respective homes with another developer, and the artist, one of them was a bio researcher, I believe. The other one is an actual artist, and then they have their video game developer.
Okay.
The artist said that he spent almost every single night, countless hours, hand drawing everything.
Sheesh.
The video game developer for the sounds got a fish tank and put it in his house to make the underwater sounds in the game.
Wow.
When you watch the trailer, everything just looks beautiful. It is black and white. It's like it gives you kind of like a Little Nightmares feel.
Okay. Yeah.
If you've ever played that game,
Yeah.
it's just great. It's another thing that's just beautifully put together. Um, Mini Motorways is I don't know if you've ever played um, the board game that has all the cars, and you have to move all the cars out the way to get like one car out, or try to get every single car out. You
Um,
know what I'm talking about?
I feel like I know what you're talking about, but no.
Okay. So mini motorways is kind of like that. You create your streets and all that other stuff to make traffic go well. And when you pass a level, it actually take you to another place in the real world, like
Okay.
Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah, I'm actually looking
Um,
at the trailer now, and yeah, that looks dope. Actually,
yeah. Let's see. Number 11 is Wayward Strand. 12 is Cult of the Lamb. That's another good looking game. 13, Another Crab's Treasure.
I've
That
never heard of
one,
it. That sounds interesting.
yeah, that one is that Souls-like kind of game. And it looks great. I know I keep saying it, but it's just beautiful.
It
Um,
actually looks a lot like what's his name from SpongeBob walking around.
Mr. Krabs,
Yeah, it looks.
yeah.
It has a real SpongeBob vibe too. Like I'm watching
Oh
the
yeah,
trailer and them or it walking on the bottom
right,
of the
yeah.
ocean. Yeah, it looks cool.
You fight, you get so the underwater world is polluted. There's
Okay.
trash everywhere. Um the boss, I'm assuming end game, has stolen your shell, your treasure.
Mm,
That's why it's called Another Crab's Treasure, because it's
gotcha.
not his, it's yours. And you go along the world, you fight countless enemies that are stronger than you, and you pick up just trash and you use it as your shell, as a shield, basically. And you'll get jumped by a bunch of enemies, stuff like that. They have the move mechanics, the battle mechanic, like it just looks really good.
It really does actually, man. This one's. I might actually have to pick this one up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Now 14 through 20, they didn't give a like a prolonged thing for it. They just kind of showed this is what the game is, and that's it. They
Okay.
didn't have the developers talk, nothing. There was just small little gameplays of each one. Um, Number 14 is One Shot World Machine.
Oh, did you freeze up on me? Well, it looks like Brian froze up on me a little bit there. Um, I think.
Um,
Oh, there he goes. Are you back?
did I disconnect or did you
Yeah.
disconnect?
I don't know. I don't know who disconnected, but I think we're back. I think we're back.
Okay, so well, if nobody heard me, 15 is Gibbon Beyond the Trees, which I did watch the gameplay and that small little section that they had, and it
Mm-hmm.
is a legitimate gibbon, a monkey. And you swing through the trees and stuff like that. I couldn't really tell what a like objective was, or anything, but it doesn't look bad. 16 is Idle Manager. 17 is Card Shark. That gives you by watching it, it gives you a older feel, like a mafia type feel with older kind of graphics and all that other stuff. It looks really involved. 18 is Cursed to Golf. 19 is A Guidebook of Babel. And 20 is Opus Echo of Star Song, Full Bloom Edition. All those games look good, 1 through 20. I probably won't get them all.
Yeah, it'd be
Um,
tough to get them on and play them all. It's like, where do you
yeah,
find the time? You know?
exactly. I will be playing in totality whichever ones that I do get. Um, because like all of these, they all look promising.
Right.
None of them look like they're gonna be, horrible. Like, nah, I don't want to play this. They all look promising. Um, so I'm looking forward to when they drop, and I believe the ones that drop today, Soundfall, I'm gonna hop on that after this. I'm gonna see how much it is in the Switch shop, and I'm gonna get it. Um, what do you think about this entire lineup and what's all it's happening with Sony?
One thing I said earlier this year was we have a group on Facebook called Center Stage where a bunch of us gamers get on, and
Yep.
At the beginning of the new year, I asked, what's your gaming New Year's resolution? And mine was to play more indie games. So mine was to catch up on my backlog, which I have a little bit, not too much, and then play like 2 to 4 indie games, which I always kind of like shied away from them. So this is
Right.
definitely a list that I could see myself playing at least two of them. That another crap story, whatever it's called, and then the one with the music. I got a very bad memory, but
Oh,
yeah. So I definitely can see myself playing those two games, and maybe it's completion. So who knows?
oh yeah.
But,
All right, let's see. That's about it that I do have for that story. Like I said, if any of you guys like any of those games, go watch that trailer. They are all promising. Like I said, definitely hop on them, help those indie developers out. Anything helps them. And with the way all these games look, they definitely deserve that help.
yeah, definitely.
So on to my last story for me today. Um, E3. What's happening with it? As most of us know, E3 got canceled. They said, sorry, E3 is just not happening this year. They didn't give a definitive why it wasn't going to happen. And they also canceled the digital E3, which
Yeah.
is what we got last year, which kind of sucked because at least the digital E3, you were able to still see what was going on without the entire um, event
Right.
happening. You just had the publishers there and stuff like that.
Right.
Um, so E3 has been a staple of the game industry for decades. This is coming from GameSpot.com, written by Steve Watts and Mark Delaney. Um, Obviously, E3's been going through this transition after a tumultuous few years punctuated by big publishers pulling out of the COVID-19 pandemic and disrupting all their plans. ESA has announced that E3 2022 is no longer happening. Um, ESA has said that it plans to return to a live in-person show in 2023, so that's definitely something to look forward to. I do want to attend an E3 event sometime in my life. So I'm out of college this month, so
Nice.
maybe next year I'll go. Um, Major publishers are moving forward with their own summer game reveal plans with or without E3. That will make this year a bit different than most, as the show won't be centralized in Los Angeles, and the events may be spread outside of a single week. This could mark big changes in the years ahead for E3 going forward. This is everything that they know about E3 and other showcases that have stepped in to fill the gap. So in late March, ESA confirmed it's done this year,
Yeah.
E3 in its entirety. Um, Obviously, not just the in-person event, the digital event as well, because of the pandemic. Um, they haven't, like I said, given a clear or simple answer. Even before the coronavirus hit, E3 was just erratic. Publishers like Activision and EA pulled out in favor of their own events. The ESA had begun allowing the public in, making it more directly comparable to fan focused events like PAX. Um, that made the future of E3 somewhat lost in the mist, as the show seemed to be transitioning from a business to business event covered by the press into something else entirely. What it would ultimately become was the subject of everybody's speculation. Nobody knew what was going to happen, where it was going, what was the future of E3. Game reveals are still going to be happening this year. Um, we are calling this not E3. So far, only two events have been announced: the Summer Game Fest live on June 9th
Yep.
and the Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase on June 12th. There may be other publishers announcing their own showcase dates, especially ones that have supported E3 in the future, in the past, like Ubisoft. Nintendo and Sony have both developed their own cadence of video announcements. As we've seen, they're just dropping things left and
Yep.
right, just like today's indie announcement. Um, Obviously, we expect both of those platforms to hold a larger scale announcement sometime over the summer. And of course, the last few years without a physical E3 has given way to more consortiums of smaller developers pooling their resources. Now, I believe the lineup um, for the press conference schedule brings in four um, events that are happening. That includes the Summer Game Fest on June 9th, that starts at 11 a.m. PT. Day of the Devs, which is also June 9th, immediately after Summer Game Fest. Tribeca Games Spotlight is June 10th, 12 p.m. PT. And Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase is June 12th, 10 a.m.
Yeah.
PT. Um, so unfortunately, the big E3 is not happening. That's sad for a lot of people, but developers are still going to put out their stuff regardless.
Right.
They got to let their consumers know what's coming with or without this huge event. Yeah, it may not draw in as many, customers as they would have hoped, but at least they're getting it out there. Because when it's out there, there's going to be talk. And when there's talk, information spreads like wildfire.
Yeah.
So this might not be, a horrible thing for these developers, and they still might see great profits coming in from their future release game dates and everything. What do you think?
Well, I think E3. I mean, 10 years ago they were the powerhouse when it came to giving developers a chance to show their games. I think their downfall started when Nintendo realized they didn't need E3 and opted out.
Yep.
Then, like you said, soon after that, I think in 2019, Sony did the same thing. They opted out of E3. Along the way, in the last 10 years, the viewership for E3 has gone down. That's one thing that I've learned from just articles and podcasts. One thing that a lot of people didn't like was, one, they were never very organized. And
Right.
two, and more importantly, you as a developer, whether it's Nintendo, Sony, Xbox, or a small studio, if you wanted to be part of E3, you had to pay them to be a part of it, millions of dollars. And people are starting to realize, especially this day and age, and now the pandemic really showed us that you don't need someone else to show your content. You have Zooms, you have the OBS studios, you have everything you would ever need. These companies have, and then some, because they're all billion-dollar companies.
Right.
So, that was something where, it's been on its downfall for a long time. Summer Game Fest is actually run by Jeff Keighley, who used to be part of E3, and he left E3. And I mean, he takes every chance he gets to kind of like, crap on E3. So when it got canceled, he put out tweets about haha E3 this and E3 that, because he knew how they treated developers. Summer Game Fest, I think E3 is dead. I don't think E3 is gonna. If it does come back next year, it'll probably be the last year that it does it. But I think they're dead. Summer Game Fest is supposed to be the new E3, so to speak. We're always going to have PlayStation showcases. We're always going to have Nintendo Directs. We're going to have the Game Awards at the end of the year, which is also run by Jeff Keighley. So a lot of hope is going towards hoping that Jeff Keighley knows what he's doing. And it kind of seems that way, because Summer Game Fest last year was pretty dope. That's where Lord of the Rings was shown off. That's where
Yep.
Tiny Tina Wonderland was showing off. So there is, hope that if E3 does go away, there's still something that can replace it, like Summer Games Fest. And it seems like, they're gearing up right now for a huge, huge show for Summer Game Fest. And then, like you said, the whole Xbox thing with Bethesda. And then, usually about once or twice a year, we get a PlayStation showcase, which shows the big games. And then we get a bunch of little PlayStation Directs, so to speak, So, and then, again, at the end of the year, we always get the Game Awards, where something big is usually shown off. That's where we saw the review of the Xbox. The Xbox Series X
Yep.
was at the Game Awards in 2019, I believe it was. So, I think E3's dead. I don't think it's going to come back, especially if they're going to sit here. If you're going to sit here and charge somebody millions of dollars to do what they can do literally how we're doing it right now with a laptop and a webcam and
Exactly.
and OBS, which is free, they're not coming back. So I hate to tell you, but you're not going to an E3. But we could go to a Summer's Game Fest, or a Game Awards one day. Who knows? So that's why
Yeah,
I
that'd
feel.
be
Unfortunately, it was every year, dude. Growing up, every year, it's like, yo, you're going to watch E3, and you anticipated that. Like March came around, April came around, and you already knew June. June is right around the corner, and E3 is right around the corner, and can't wait for the PlayStation show or the Xbox show just to see what was going to pop off. And
right.
just the last, 5 to 6 years, it just wasn't exciting. So,
Yeah, yeah,
unfortunately,
they didn't do a good job.
right? Unfortunately, it's in my opinion and a lot of people's opinion, E3 is dead.
Yep,
Womp
I can
womp.
definitely agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Where's that? We need I need to get Alicia real quick for the trombone and go brr, brr, brr,
Right.
you know. But that's about it for my side of the story. So I'm gonna grab this report. I'm gonna toss it over to you, and you can go ahead and start story number 4.
All right. Story number 4, Brian. The Xbox streaming stick is real, my friend. Apparently,
Oh man.
um, Microsoft is teasing that they will have a streaming stick within the next 12 months or so. Also, that if you own a Samsung Smart TV, there might be an app on that TV where you can play Game Pass games, obviously through the cloud. Um, this article is from TechRadar.com, is written by Gerald Lynch. It goes on to say Xbox streaming stick, release window, and everything we know so far. A new, cheaper way of playing Xbox Game Pass is coming. While the excitement of opening a new console like the Xbox Series X or PS5 for the first time remains unmatched, the age of the traditional console could be drawing to a close, with cloud gaming going from strength to strength, and Microsoft's Xbox Game Pass Ultimate now integrating the company's Xbox Cloud Gaming streaming service. Could the next big hardware release from Microsoft be an Xbox streaming stick? We say big, but it could physically be the company's smallest device yet, with as much in common with a Roku streaming stick or Amazon Fire TV stick than it does an Xbox Series X. But how will this work? When could we see it? And would it be worth waiting for? Um, so it goes on to say Xbox streaming stick, cut to the chase. What is it? A dongle sized device that streams Xbox games from the cloud. When is it out? The device has yet to be officially announced, though rumor has it that Microsoft could release the new Xbox hardware by mid 2023. And how much would it cost? That's yet to be determined, but we expect significantly less than even the affordable Xbox Series S, and are hoping for a sub $100 price tag. Microsoft is indeed working on some sort of streaming specific device. It goes on to say the first part of the puzzle sits with Microsoft's cloud gaming technology, known as Xbox Cloud Gaming. Um, and it just goes on to talk about the Xbox streaming stick and what it could be. Um, at the end of the day, this to me is major. Positive, but also negative. One, this could be the end of consoles as we know it, but also it could be very cheap for us to get into gaming. The Xbox streaming stick, if it's less than $100, rumors is that it might be, for $100, it may be bundled with Xbox One controller.
Right.
Which makes sense, because you'll need that to play the games. You can't play it on a remote. So, rumors is it'll come bundled with that. If it doesn't, they're hoping it's like $60 or less for the streaming stick. They're saying it could be a stick or something along the lines of a Roku box or an Apple TV, where you just sit it next to your TV. And then it'll also have all the Netflix and Disney Plus and all that stuff built into it as well. But it'll also have the Xbox Cloud app on there. For me, if it comes out, I will definitely get this because I already have Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. So if I can plug this into my bedroom TV and play, even just like a Hades or Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, something that I just want to play for an hour, before bed, or 45 minutes, I'm in there.
Right.
You know what I mean? I also think this is a great way to get people into gaming that don't want to spend the $400 or $500 on Xbox Series X or a PS5. Even though the Series S is only $300, for $60 to $100, that is an easy gateway into the gaming industry. They're also saying that it may come with like a 1 month or 2 month trial of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which I think is smart, because they tried that out. They're like, man, this is amazing. Now, ultimately, it really is going to, your internet connection is going to determine how great these games play because they are
Right.
being streamed from the cloud. So if you have a lot of buffering watching Netflix or Disney Plus or HBO Max, you're going to have even more buffering with playing Xbox games through the cloud. So how do you feel about it?
I think I'm on the same boat as you. If it does come out to where it's around that $100 range, I'm definitely gonna get it. I don't play Xbox much. That's because I have a plethora of consoles that I play all the time, which includes the Switch and my PS5. Those two take up most of my time.
Yeah.
If I have the option to legitimately just plug this into the back of my TV and start playing, I'm gold. I'm doing it.
Right.
That's saves me the setup time for digging out the Xbox and all this other stuff. I'll definitely go for it. I don't have the greatest internet, but I also don't buffer a bunch of times during Netflix.
Right.
So I believe it'll run as well as I need it to, at home. Um, I mean, you can't go wrong with starting off with the free trial,
Right.
drawing the people in, and really, driving that selling point of this stick. Get it for $100. You get a controller, 2 months free, Game Pass Ultimate. Play whatever the heck you want
Yeah.
for 2 months, and then after that, you can decide if it's really worth it.
Yeah.
2 months. While some people think it's too little time, other people think it's a lot of time.
Right.
Some people who don't have a lot to do in their lives could really benefit from this. Oh, well, maybe I don't want to pay for cable. Maybe I don't this. Maybe I don't that. I want to save money. There's the stick. You have
Yeah.
Netflix, you have Disney Plus, and you have games for after the 2 months, 20 something a month, which is still a
Best
heck
deal
of
in
a lot
gaming.
less.
It's the best deal in
Yeah,
gaming.
like you can't beat that. And to the other people that work really long hours and stuff like that, it might not be as worth it to them, but they can still save on other expenses
Right.
with that.
Right.
So I mean, I see it as a win-win for a lot of people. Obviously the downside is no more physical games.
Yeah.
The end of consoles as we know it. Not many people, I at least I think not many people in the future are gonna be like, ooh, collector stick. You know what I
Right. Yeah.
mean?
Exactly.
It's I it's a good thing to have. I don't think it would benefit in the future for resale value.
Right.
Um, but anything.
And the thing is too, like if you have a Samsung TV, smart TV, if the rumors are true, they're going to develop an app for that TV, and
Yeah,
you won't even have to buy the stick. You can just stream it straight from your TV.
exactly.
So, I mean, there goes you can buy an Xbox One controller cheap, off a marketplace, 20, 30
Yep.
bucks, and there you go. There goes your entry into video games. So
Yep. I there's pros and there's cons to it. I don't know if the pros outweighs the cons at this point. This is still in development and talk, stuff like that. We'll really only see when this actually drops, how we will actually feel about it. Um, something like this will definitely change the world of gaming. It'll have a big impact on it.
I agree,
Um,
but I feel like one thing that we can count on is that Nintendo will always have a console because I
yeah,
mean at least for the next maybe 3 generations because they always feel like they're 3 generations behind even though they're so progressive when it comes to like gimmicks like the Wii or the Wii U or the Switch, which work well. I guess I want to say gimmicks. They're far
right.
away from cloud gaming or anything like that. We're going to have a lot of physical media from them still, so at least we
Oh
still
yeah,
have that to look forward to.
yeah. And
uh,
I love the Switch.
yeah.
I love Nintendo in general. It's
Yes,
just
sir.
always been a favorite of mine. Do you have anything else?
That's it, man.
All right. So I think that's going to go ahead and wrap up today's
Yes, sir.
Entertainment Plaza Gaming Podcast. Like always, we are on all of your favorite podcast services, Spotify, Apple Music. Definitely check us out on there. Give us that 5-star rating
Yes,
on
sir.
whatever you want. Boost us as best as you can. Anything is greatly appreciated. Um, this will be up either tonight or sometime early morning
Now
tomorrow.
I'll definitely make sure this one's up tonight. So like you said, we'll put it
All
on
right.
YouTube in about an hour or so, and then right after that, it's fairly easy to put it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So I'll make sure it's out for the people tonight.
Good, good. You heard the man. Keep your eyes and ears peeled.
Yes, sir.
This is dropping. But from me and from Mo, we appreciate you guys. You have a great night. Deuces.
Peace.